changes to the time. We were supposed to have had this meeting at 9:30. There was a caucus called and we had to reschedule. As a result of that, I know that this has inconvenienced both the minister and Judge Cameron. We are seriously indebted to them for agreeing to come at 2. The minister had to change a meeting that was scheduled at 2, and Judge Cameron also needs to be released early. So what I propose we do is that we'll allow the ministers to speak, and then thereafter Judge Cameron, then we can Judge Cameron can make his opening remarks, and then we can engage the questions to both the minister and Judge Cameron. But those questions that are operational in nature, for Judge Cameron, I think the CEO is equal to the task. Then when we move to after the presentation by the commissioner, then they will all answer operational questions. I see the hand of Honorable Breitenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to apologize for Honorable Horn. He has a meeting that he couldn't reschedule, but he will join us late.
Oh, okay. No problem. Is my proposal acceptable, members?
Chair, Steve Swart. Greetings to everyone.
Yes.
I just wanted to get an understanding of the time allocated and the time that we'll be able to engage with the minister. I understand you indicated that he might have to leave early. If that is the case, then we'll...
That is Judge Cameron. That is Judge Cameron.
And the minister will, I thought I heard as well in that regard.
No,
Not.
the minister.
Okay.
The minister has rescheduled his appointment in order to be here.
Thank you, Chair, for that clarity. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I think we should proceed. Welcome to both the minister, Judge Cameron, the National Commissioner, and members of JICS, and a special welcome to everybody on the virtual platform and those who are watching us from home. Today we'll be receiving a briefing from the minister on the overview for all the entities that report to us, and we also have a presentation from Correctional Services and JICS on their annual performance plans. Minister, I will invite you to take the platform.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson and the members of the Portfolio Committee.
We can't hear you, Minister.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
No, no, we can't hear you. We can see you now.
Okay, I can hear you.
Can you check on your settings?
Help with the mic.
Okay.
I think we have exchanged seats with Honorable.
Is it
Ngola.
fine now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. I think we have exchanged seats with Honorable Ngola. He's always under the tree today. You are under the tree.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. Thank you very much, Chairperson and the members of the Portfolio Committee, the Deputy Minister for Justice and Constitutional Development, the Deputy Minister for Correctional Services, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, and all the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, the Director General of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, the National Commissioner for the Department of Correctional Services, the National Director of Public Prosecutions, Head of the Special Investigation Unit, the Chief Executive Officer of the Legal Aid South Africa, the Inspecting Judge, Justice Edwin Cameron, and all the distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to account to this 6th Parliament on the impact of the departments and entities falling under the broader Justice and Correctional Services umbrella. The departments and entities represented here today make a real and meaningful impact in the lives of the people. I want to share with you the story of a 44-year-old third-year medical student at Walter Sisulu University in the Eastern Cape. Very often people think the person with the most money will be the one who wins the case, or that if you have money, you can buy justice. But every day, Legal Aid South Africa shows that this is not true, as Legal Aid ensures quality access to justice for all through the work they do. The medical student from the Eastern Cape was married out of community of property, and divorce proceedings were pending in the High Court. Her husband is a well-known doctor in the area. She was struggling financially as her husband had stopped supporting her. She had a financial investment with the Provisional Provident Society and approached them as she wanted to make use of the monies. An amount of 30,013 Rand 40 cents that accrued in the account. The Provisional Provident Fund Society paid out the money, but paid it into the account of the husband, who refused to pay the money to her. She feared that the husband might spend the money, and then she approached Legal Aid South Africa for assistance to get access to the money. Legal Aid South Africa's legal practitioner immediately drafted papers for an urgent application to freeze the husband's account and made all the arrangements to have the matter heard on an urgent basis. Legal Aid South Africa successfully argued the matter, and the court granted the order to freeze the bank account until all monies due to her were paid. As soon as the order was served on the client's husband, he immediately contacted Legal Aid South Africa and made arrangement to pay the money over to the client. Legal Aid South Africa made sure that she received the money that she was entitled to and protected her rights and her property, even though she did not have the funds and the resources that the husband had. And she is not the only one. In the last financial year, 480,552 people have benefited from the services of Legal Aid South Africa, practitioners across the length and breadth of our country. This is a 31% increase in clients when compared to the previous financial year. Legal Aid South Africa was also named a top employer in South Africa for the 13th consecutive year. The entity has continued to prioritize maintaining excellent people practices in the workplace and strives to meet the challenges of the changing world of work to positively impact on the life of its staff. As honorable members will be aware, they will also be onboarding the land matters that will be protecting the vulnerable farm dwellers. The current board and the executive have been able to sustain the great work of their predecessors. The entity received its 14th clean and 21st unqualified audit opinion from the Auditor General South Africa in 2021-2022. The decrease in irregular expenditure by 459,291 is evidence of better controls implemented to ensure compliance with legislation and procurement regulations. Honorable members, corruption remains a major threat to our country. Transparency International has made an observation which may be relevant in our context. As a country, and that is corruption increases inequality, decreases popular accountability and political responsiveness, and thus produces rising frustrations and hardships amongst citizens, who are then more likely to accept or even demand hard-handed and liberal illegal tactics. Those tactics shift the blame for economic insecurity and political decline into immigrations or other minority groups, and onto economic and political allies, who must, the theory goes, be dealt with swiftly and decisively. The rule of law and liberal values of tolerance and human dignity then becomes obstacles needed to change. At the start of the 6th administration, we set ourselves a stall to strengthen the National Prosecuting Authority human and financial capacity as an instrument to entrench the rule of law in our society and the fight against fraud and corruption, both in the public and the private sector. Our efforts in the fight against fraud and corruption, both in the public and private sector, is beginning to yield significant progress and results. In this regard, I want to highlight that the Special Commercial Crimes Unit finalized 380 cases with 344 convictions, a conviction rate of 90.5%. The number of government officials convicted of corruption increased by 38.4%, from 86 to 119 year-on-year end. Our performance in private sector corruption prosecutions has improved by 39.5%, from 147 to 205 people convicted. All the senior vacancies in the NPA have been filled, and our next phase is to intensify the skill set of our prosecutors and police officers. Here we envision attracting data analysts, forensic analysts, and cybercrime experts. Progress in the capacity of the NPA to date is demonstrated by several seminal cases, which are before the courts for prosecution. These cases feature prominent South Africans, multinational companies, and recent white-collar crime syndicates. Our country's prosecutors have shown great bravery and tenacity for justice. They are doing it without fear or favor. The effects of corruption in our state-owned enterprises can be felt right down to level of service delivery. Let's take the matter of the state versus Moraka and another. Accused one was employed by Eskom as a financial controller for primary energy in Gauteng. Accused two was a sole member director of Megra Transport CC. Acting together, accused 1 and 2 submitted fraudulent claims on the basis that Megra Transport CC had transported and delivered coal to Eskom power stations, which was not the case. The total loss to Eskom amounted to 256 million rands. Both accused pleaded guilty and were sentenced to an effective term of 20 years imprisonment. Honorable members, we are tackling domestic violence against women, men, or children living in the same domestic unit. Although women and girls are the main victims of gender-based violence, it is also caused severe harm to families and communities as a whole. The soccer unit of the NPA facilitates access to justice, safety, and protection in response to the needs of GBV victims using legislation, policies, international and regional protocols, and through addressing the infrastructural and resourcing challenges that obstruct the optimum delivery of justice to survivors. This is achieved through the Tutuzela care centers, the TCCs, which improve access to survivor support services and victim-centric criminal justice services by being sensitive to and victims' needs. 5 additional Tutuzela care center sites were established during this financial year, bringing the total to 60. During the reporting period, 34,456 matters were reported at the Tutuzela care centers across the country. A conviction rate of 76.7% was obtained for cases reported at the Tutuzela care centers. Some 201 accused were sentenced to life imprisonment. 106 accused were sentenced to 20 to 25 years imprisonment. And 378 accused were sentenced to imprisonment between 10 and 19 years. A special mention is reserved for all the prosecutors in the matter of S versus Nikana. A 36-year-old man from Clocolan was sentenced to 6 life terms in the Free State High Court after he was found guilty of raping his 14-year-old daughter 6 times between May and July 2021. The victim lived with the accused, his wife, who is her stepmother, and 2 other siblings. In May 2021, the accused told his wife that his late brother told him in a dream to get rid of the tokolosh that was inside the victim. On the same night, the accused raped the victim. The wife tried to reprimand him, but he assaulted her. He threatened to kill both if they told anyone what he did. The last rape incident took place on the 25th of July, 2021. A day later, the accused sister visited the family and the wife told her what the husband had done. The sister reported her brother to the police and he was arrested. Honorable members, and convicted. Honorable members, cable theft is highly organized and has significant negative impact on businesses, communities, and ordinary crime committed within cyberspace, where information and communication technologies are used as an instrument to target or means of perpetuating further crimes. It is estimated that cable theft costs South African economy between 5 billion rands and 7 billion rands a year. The NPA obtained 193 convictions from 210 verdict cases, recording 91.9% conviction rates in cable theft matters. Despite these cases being complex in nature and encompassing a high level of technical evidence, a special focus on the prosecution of cybercrime cases resulted in a high conviction rate of 97.4%. 149 convictions from 153 verdict cases. The cases prosecuted in copper theft and essential infrastructure has increased from 409 to 959 in the last financial year. That is an increase of over 500 matters. The NPA is collaborating with other stakeholders nationally and internationally during the phase of implementing the Cybercrimes Act 19 of 2020. This act, which came into effect in 2021, will provide guidance and clarity on the identification and prosecution of these matters. Prosecutions during the current financial year were mostly conducted in terms of common law offenses and other existing statutory crimes, where crimes were committed with the use of technology. Under the auspices of FIC, the NPA is active in recalibrating the economy. Money laundering, the NPA has enhanced its focus on addressing money laundering linked to illegal wildlife trafficking. The NPA participated in the Financial Action Task Force typology study pertaining to this subject matter in 2020, resulting in the release of the FATF report in 2021. International cooperation in criminal matters and mutual legal matters. I know that honorable members will want to know about the international cooperation in criminal matters and in mutual legal assistance. One of the legs of the investigation into the standoff matter has been finalized. A mutual legal assistance MLA request to one of the foreign jurisdictions or authorities was submitted, and another MLA to a different foreign authority is in the process of being transmitted. In this financial year, we're addressing the weakness in our international cooperation in criminal matters and legislative framework, which does not address all the necessary aspects. A new bill has been prepared providing for the extradition of persons sought for extraditable offenses to and from South Africa, to request states which South Africa has concluded an agreement, and for the surrender of persons sourced to international entities having jurisdictions in respect of international crimes, genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The bill also seeks to clarify the roles and responsibilities of the different functionaries and to put procedures in place to expedite extradition requests. It will greatly enhance efficiency in the investigation and prosecution of cases as the jurisprudence has and continue to be developed in this area of the law. This bill is aimed to ensuring that South Africa is not a haven for criminals or said to be acting with impunity. The bill has been processed through the relevant clusters, and the department is to obtain cabinet's approval to introduce the bill in Parliament. With regards to the Justice Department and constitutional development, honorable members who have said to this House that we are going to set out our stall to rebuild and renew the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. The department in this financial year has recorded the highest level of performance in 4 years. The department's overall performance is on an upward trajectory, with 79% of the planned targets achieved, compared to 66% in the previous financial year. This is an increase of 24% as compared to the 2018-2019 financial year. Modernizing of the justice services through the use of digital capabilities continue to be a priority. Despite the challenges posed by aging ICT infrastructure and the ransomware attack, the department continues to prioritize and enhance the system security and build on a strong foundation of ICT infrastructure. During the reporting period, the following online services were developed and piloted. Maintenance online services piloted at the branch court, Devon Court, with walk-in public utilizing kiosks that were set up at the court. Deceased estates and trust online services piloted at the master's office in Pretoria, with identified trusted agents utilizing the online portal. Expungement of criminal records online services piloted at the National Office Legal Services component with the walk-in public utilizing kiosks. The NRCO online services during 2021-22 piloted at the National Registrar's Office with SAC, South African Council of Educators. Civil online services piloted at Polokwane Magistrate Court with identified legal aid attorneys that utilize the online portal. The department obtained a qualified audit, and the department's irregular expenditure is relatively high. The irregular expenditure is driven primarily by the fact that we have not been able to obtain a deviation from the National Treasury for the work done by the state attorneys for other state departments. Correctional service. Under correctional services, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, as you are aware, the Department of Correctional Services continue to implement the self-sufficiency strategic framework across all its regions. We have produced the first annual report of the self-sufficiency, and we want to urge all people to read the report so that they could have a better understanding of our work as correctional services. In line with the Correctional Services Act, which calls us to be as far as possible to be self-sustainable and to operate the department as a business entity. We can announce, honorable members, that we are now on the good path and the foundation has been laid for building an entrepreneurial state under the Department of Correctional Services. During the 2020-2021 financial year, our farms created a cost saving of approximately 94 million rands through internal produce. In the 2021-22 financial year, the saving was 115 million rands, and the projected saving for the current financial year is 163 million rands. There is a process underway to determine the possibility of expansion of current use land in our farms. The internal market analysis for 2021-2022 has been developed to determine the self-sufficiency level of the department, as it is critical for the planning of agricultural production. And I hope honorable members, as they were moving across the country, visiting through their site visit, they have seen and touched the self-sufficiency work that we are doing. And they can attest that indeed the tide is turning. This is a clear demonstration that the Department of Correctional Services has turned a new leaf and is on the path to create exciting new opportunities for inmates and officials. Often we are told of allegations of corruptions and malfeasance in government. The good work that we are doing is often ignored, but our work at the Correctional Services speaks for itself. South Africans can speak of a department that is transformed and will continue with this new approach to ensure that we reach our full potential in line with the Correctional Services Act and to build an entrepreneurial department. We have also recorded a second consecutive unqualified opinion where the Auditor General commended the Department of Correctional Services for submitting financial statements that were free from material misstatements. We remain committed to attain a clean audit opinion. Myself and Deputy Minister Olomisa have impressed upon the National Commissioner to prioritize matters which have been raised by the Auditor General, like regular expenditure and consequence management. We're also working hard to empower young people. This will enable us to ensure that we broaden opportunities for young people. Currently, we've enrolled 1,032 learners who are currently undergoing training at Zonderwater and Kronstadt colleges as part of our learnership program. We will also soon advertise the learnership to enroll many or more young people. Youth appointments were also prioritized for the critical and essential posts in the last financial year. And as a result, 74% of youth were appointed within the department, which is an overachievement against the target of 20%. The department will continue to prioritize compliance with the employment equity plan in the filling of vacant posts. House chairpersons, another matter of great concern to us is the people committing crime but through our parolees, or our parolees committing crime. Even though most of our parolees comply with their parole conditions and our monitoring officials work around the clock to ensure compliance, actions of few parolees undermine our efforts of reintegrating offenders back into society. I also want to take this opportunity to convey the department's condolences to the families of the two officials who were killed in Tsakani while monitoring a parolee. The parole review process is underway, and it will also look at ways to strengthen our parole granting process to ensure that those we release are rehabilitated and abhor their previous life of crime. We will work with different stakeholders, including traditional leaders, to assist us with reintegration of offenders and monitoring of our parolees in communities. We shall continue to condemn in strongest possible terms parolees who commit heinous crimes in society. These are kind of people who undermine all our rehabilitation efforts, and they will be punished severely through the parameters of the law. However, we equally want to highlight that they are equally good ambassadors of our parole system. These are parolees who establish various businesses and initiatives for their communities, including farming in the communities where traditional leaders give some of them land to farm. I also want to share with the committee the stories of two parolees and one ex-parolee who are having a positive impact in their communities. One parolee was sentenced to 12 years for murder. He started farming in 2018 after he was given a plot by the family around Libuahome. Since then, he managed to employ two community members. He is planting spinach, beetroot, cabbage, and carrots. His production has grown to an extent that he is supplying Spar supermarket in the Libuahome and Gankwana areas. The second parolee was sentenced to life imprisonment for murder, robbery, theft, and possession of a firearm. He was placed on the parole in 2019, and he started his bakery business in 2021. His bakery is serving communities around Leofontein, Hamohanyaga, and Mapoko villages. The ex-parolee has registered a non-profitable organization known as Bashai Ditlou Rams, which caters as a drop-in center for the needy and ailing old people of Mahodu village in Muleji area. The center is situated in Mahodi Muleji. The center has 98 beneficiaries. Chairperson, the 80% overall performance of the Department of Correctional Services in the last financial year was impressive. We have instructed the National Commissioner to look into few areas of non-achievement so that we can turn around the situation. Performance management is very important, and we want to see the department achieving all its targets. We remain committed to draw from the wisdom of the Portfolio Committee in our work, and we appreciate the oversight provided by this committee. We shall continue working with the committee, and when called to account, we shall not hesitate to come and appear before the committee. Many eyes are helpful. I thank you very much, Chairperson and the honorable members.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you for the briefing. Let me also recognize the presence of the Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Honorable John Jeffrey, and the Deputy Minister responsible for Correctional Services, Nkosi Phathekile Olomisa. Can I now take this opportunity to invite Judge Cameron to make his input?
Chairperson, may I say in deference to you and your members that I'm extremely indebted to you, and I do apologize to the committee for the leapfrogging which you have permitted, for which I'm very grateful. I had a long-standing public speaking engagement at 5:30, and you and your members have enabled me to honor that arrangement instead of at very short notice cancelling it. Chairperson, as you already know, I have our communications officer, Ms. Emma Cupido, will bear the burden of presenting our annual report in summary to you. I also want to thank the Minister and his two deputies, Nkosi Patekile Holomisa and Mr. John Jeffrey, for their assistance over the past year and recognize their presence here today. I'm going to, let me time myself, Chairperson. I don't want to take more than 5 minutes in overview, and I want to make a few comments. The one is that, to our surprise, COVID did not cut a swathe of death and devastation and illness through our carceral population. That's very unusual. It did so in many other prisons across the world, and we give credit to the department and to the ministerial heads of that department. As a result, both of the President's special dispensation for parole and Minister Lamola's activation of that, together with the NCCS, the preceding year to this year saw a significant easing of carceral conditions because of the release of non-violent offenders. We emphasize, Chair, that these were non-violent offenders, and many of them, in our view at JICS, respectfully, should never have been incarcerated in the first place. So the prison numbers increased by only 1.6 in the year 2021 to 2022, and yet, as at March 2022, the overcrowding rate is now 31.65%. Our prison numbers are going up again. I don't like statistics, Mr. Chair, but let me say that we have the highest number of people incarcerated in the whole of Africa, and we have the 12th highest number of people incarcerated anywhere in the world. Of course, we recognize that some states, especially autocratic states, don't always offer reliable figures, but by all the figures that we have, we occupy a dismal position in that order. The Minister, when we presented to him intra-departmentally a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Chair, he asked about those figures, and we have written to him to give the precise coordinates that indicate our dismal position. We are even worse when it comes to numbers of prisoners per 100,000. Behind us are countries like Algeria and Egypt on the African continent, which have populations over 100 million, and they have fewer prisoners than us, which increases the sore thumb status of our country even more. On the good side, Mr. Chair, you and all the members of your committee have agreed to a reflective seminar to try to get to the roots. We do not believe that over-incarceration, over long sentences assist in curbing issues that the Minister mentioned: cable theft, copper cable theft, cash and transit heists, murders, gender-based violence. We believe that there are better efforts that can be made, starting, of course, with effective crime intelligence, effective follow-up by the CID, and effective policemen on the ground. But over-incarceration, Mr. Chair, is an ineffective means of dealing with that. We have serious worries. These include the sharp increases. All the danger signals are up, as Emma will show your committee shortly, Mr. Chair. Hunger strikes, suicides, attempted suicides, more unnatural deaths. These are almost certainly underestimates because of the underreporting by the department, which undermines JICS's reporting function. Sexual violence particularly features here. It's completely underreported. And a worrying structural feature, Mr. Chair, is that SAPS and NPA, for different reasons, don't cooperate with JICS. We say, for example, in Bruntvlei, caught on camera 7 years ago what looked like a terrible murder. Prosecution has not yet started. It's grinding its way at great slowness through the courts. Not a problem unique to South Africa. We know that prison departments do not receive cooperation from police or prosecuting authorities anywhere in the world. Derek Chauvin in Minnesota was the first policeman ever convicted of first-degree murder in Minnesota, an indication of how correctional and police officers are often not at the forefront of prosecuting and policing zeal. Another worry is that our remand detainees comprise a third, Mr. Chair, of our prison population, and of these, very worryingly, at least 2,724 have been given bail, but they can't afford it. We call them prisoners of poverty. One more figure before I wrap up in about 3 minutes, Mr. Chair. I've given this figure to the committee before. 1995, how many people do we have in our new democracy serving sentence of life? 400. How many do we have now? Nearly 18,000. Just an indication to the committee of the gross sentence inflation, which we respectfully believe is misdirected. There are other ways to deal with murderers, rapists, and violent offenders. And yet, not all is gloomy. We have made substantial progress with the minister's support, Minister Lamola's support, Deputy Minister Holomisa's support in achieving our financial independence. We've previously told this committee we are awaiting Treasury's approval of the necessary funding. That is all that remains outstanding. That also, as we will tell the Constitutional Court shortly in our responding affidavit to the department's application for an extension on the Sonke deadline, that is the reason, the absence of finalization of JICS's funding, why a major stumbling block in completing the Sonke legislation. We have a joint subcommittee with the NCCS, together with my colleague Judge Brian Mashile. We actively working on parole improvements. We've also made significant progress with the minister's assistance. We visited Ebongweni together, and we believe that our input, to which the new National Commissioner, Mr. Makoti Tobakale, has responded favorably and receptively. We've sent practical suggestions to ease the conditions without creating risks. And we've also been facilitating workshops on sexual violence through Just Detention International. So, Mr. Chair, thank you very much to you. May I conclude there? I remain available for questions because of your kind juggling and leapfrogging of the time. And I hand over now to my colleague, Emma Cupida. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Judge Comron.
Thank you, Ajay, and thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will continue with the presentation. JICS values the mandate it is expected to uphold and will continue to strive to perform its duties fairly and impartially, to ensure that the dignity of those incarcerated, including those that guard them, are maintained and protected. JICS officers are based in various provinces, with the recent amalgamation of the Northwest incorporated into the Northern Management Region, due to the proximity of these provinces in relation to the Central Management Region, where the Northwest was previously incorporated. We envisage that this will provide better service in the future as we continue to find ways to improve what we can offer to our clients. The organizational structure of JICS has not changed in the past few years, as posts have not been available. There has been gender movement with the filling of critical management funded posts, and we hope that with the establishment of the government component, JICS will be able to fill critical vacancy gaps, ensuring better service delivery. During the course of our duties, JICS has taken note of various trends that have emerged. These trends have assisted JICS in identifying strategic areas within our reporting that needed to be identified for strategic development, improvement of services, as well as feedback mechanisms that had to be put in place. DCS statistics received as at the 6th of June 2022 show that at the end of the reporting year, the total inmate population was 143,244, comprising of 96,080 sentenced offenders and 47,164 remand detainees. The official bed space at all correctional facilities was 108,804. Correctional facilities were 31.65% overpopulated in comparison to 23% overcrowding experienced in the previous year. In real terms, there's been an increase of 2,296 inmates. JICS keeps a close eye on the inmate population, especially those that are considered vulnerable. And an example of this is state patients. JICS has taken an active role in engaging with various provincial health departments to track the movement of state patients and to facilitate the transfer of these patients to mental health facilities. The overall inmate population remains of grave concern as overcrowding leads to dire consequences within facilities, as centers were never built to house so many. Even with the special parole dispensations that have been granted in the last few years, the numbers, especially with remand detainees, have not decreased significantly. JICS will continue to advocate and propagate innovative recommendations as we are committed to reducing the prison population and releasing inmates that should not have been incarcerated in the first place. Also note that parole consideration for people sentenced to life imprisonment remains a significant challenge. Inspections of correctional facilities is one of the core mandates of JICS. Inspections of correctional facilities have financial and other implications, and it is for this reason that the National Inspection Plan forms part of the JICS strategic planning. Factors such as logistics, budgetary constraints, and availability of human resources are considered in the strategic plan. JICS planned 136 inspections across 238 operational correctional services. JICS was able to conduct all 136 planned inspections, which equated to 55%. With the Abasholi project, a new initiative conducted by JICS management as an ad hoc task to increase inspections, JICS conducted 36 unannounced inspections, resulting in 172 inspections conducted, thus increasing the inspection rate to 72%. Of the 172 inspections over the reporting period, 9% of the correctional facilities were rated unsatisfactory, 81% were rated satisfactory, and 10% were rated good. Now, JICS is severely constricted with its investigation function, as it only employs 8 inspectors who also double as ad hoc investigators. Most of the cases that JICS investigated during the performance cycle were related to violence. The increase of violent incidents where DCS officials were implicated in the death of inmates, as reported in the previous annual report, continued to rise. Now, in the previous performance cycle, JICS investigated 5 cases of the alleged homicide of inmates by DCS officials. The number of inmates that allegedly died at the hands of DCS officials increased to 6 from 5. 2 inmates died as a result of being shot by SAPS officials during an attempted escape at the Mzinto Correctional Center during the July 2021 unrest in KZN. A total of 46 investigations were mandated. What is important to note here is that JICS does not employ specialized investigators, nor does it have an approved director to deal with investigations. These are carried out on an ad hoc basis by inspectors and JICS management. For the 2021-2022 performance period, the complaints unit registered 471 complaints. The number of complaints increased by 132 as compared to the previous performance cycle. Complaints are received from both internal and external sources. And internal sources refer to JICS Independent Correctional Center visitors, inmates, their legal representatives, and families who lodge complaints to JICS. External sources refer to other oversight bodies, such as the Public Protector, Legal Aid South Africa, and the South African Human Rights Commission, etc. Use of force, death, segregation, assaults, and mechanical restraints are collectively termed mandatory reporting matters. While great care has been taken by JICS to ensure that each instance of the mandatory report is complied with, the statistics quoted in this report is at variance with that of DCS, as JICS can only report on matters that it has received from DCS. This area of statistics is where the biggest discrepancies lie. These statistics are differentiated from, example, inmate population totals, bed space, or remand detainee totals. The new e-correction system has been designed, will allow head of centers to report mandatory matters to the inspecting judge. The system is currently being rolled out, and we hope that this will decrease the discrepancies that have plagued our reports over the last few years. A total of 218 ICCVs were deployed throughout correctional facilities across the country and attended to a total of 51,438 general and urgent complaints. With the easing of the lockdown levels in the correctional facilities, we have observed a great improvement in the performance of ICCVs during this cycle. Now, these complaints are handled in the following process, either through regular visits, interviewing inmates in private, recording complaints in an official diary, and monitoring how they have been dealt with, and discussing complaints received with the head of correctional centers or relevant officials to resolve the issues internally. Unresolved and urgent complaints are referred to the visitors committees and the Office of the Inspecting Judge as per Section 94(3) of the CSA. The VC comprises of all the ICCVs appointed in that particular management area, and it meets at least once per quarter. Nationally, there are 34 constituted and established VCs. The function of the VCs include to consider unresolved complaints with a view to their resolution, to submit to the inspecting judge those complaints that the committee cannot resolve, to organize scheduled visits, and to extend and promote the community's interest and involvement in correctional matters. Only one out of the 136 VC meetings could not be conducted due to the quorum that was not met. And during these VC meetings, 209 complaints were resolved there. Overspending is due to an insufficient allocation of the COE budget allocation for the financial year 2021-2022, unilateral budget cuts during the beginning of the financial year, non-pensionable allowance payments that were paid to all JICS employees, as well as a performance bonus for the financial year 2020 to 2021. JICS also has a fleet of 32 vehicles that need to be maintained, as well as goods and services, capital assets, and transfers and subsidies that form part of this budget. In the past year, the cost of employees' expenditure increased from 59,918,697 to 69,288,648, with a total budget allocation of 76,140,000. This certainly is not ideal. The acting national commissioner confirmed in writing that an amount of 3,071,000 will be shifted to JICS' budget to cover the shortfall on the COE budget. JICS is still awaiting the transfer. JICS has actively sought through its selection and recruitment processes to attract employees which fall under the following categories: employment equity, youth, and people with disabilities. The majority of employees, 235 of the 321 currently at JICS, are contract workers, and this in the past has posed great challenges due to the centralization of the personnel systems and functions at the DCS head office. Contract workers were being paid periodically, which is unauthorized, and the creation of additional posts is dependent on DCS, resulting in different salary payment dates. That is not on the last day of the month. In terms of the ICCVs, we can now report that this function has been created. The other contract posts have not. The creation of these further posts will assist in eradicating the irregular payment of contract workers in JICS. Installation of computers for ICCBs in correctional centers. 50 desktops were installed at various correctional centers during 2021-2022, which will greatly assist ICBs in the performance of their duties. A total of 258 user profiles and mailboxes on the Active Directory under the JICS domain was also created. Development and integration of JICS's MIS into the DCS e-corrections. We've definitely been encouraged by the rollout of this project, and as mentioned before, will greatly assist in mandatory reporting performance in the future. 47 JICS officials have been connected to the JICS domain utilizing the e-correction platform, allowing easy live access to inmates' information. Development of the JICS mail server and website. The server that was allocated to JICS for its Active Directory mailbox exchange and website hosting did not have enough random access memory and hard disk space, which has caused endless delays and network instability, as an additional server needed to be configured and installed. JICS and other government departments have had major challenges in the past few months with the mailbox exchange as well as with our own website. We hope that this will be resolved soon. JICS engaged in several media activities during the 2021-2022 performance cycle, including media releases, requests, and responses. The emphasis is on impactful themes rather than quantity. In light of this, JICS continuously aims to engage with the media, providing fast response to media requests, staying updated with what is happening in the sector, and providing information that is relevant to the public and staff. JICS is also cognizant of the implications that PAPIA and PAIA hold in terms of media relations. Internal communication was maintained through various communication portals, which include email and the WhatsApp group system, to ensure that JICS staff were updated on all matters relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and all internal processes to ensure transparency and build a culture of inclusivity and responsiveness. The Communications Subdirectorate has a designated email address from where all internal communication is disseminated. And finally, Chairperson, especially as this was mentioned in a previous PC session, JICS amended its risk assessment policy to facilitate a process that enables management to assess each identified risk at an inherent level by determining its likelihood and impact, and has included preemptive processes to ensure that the action plan for each risk factor can be implemented fortuitously to mitigate harm. Excuse me. That brings us to the end of the JICS presentation. I will hand over to the inspecting judge for any final words if the chairperson permits, and then over to questions. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. I think, Judge, you are ready for questions.
Definitely. Perhaps if the minister, I'm in your hands, Chair, being grateful for the accommodation already offered. And if the minister is available, I'm in your hands as to that.
We are also very grateful for accommodating us, because I think the challenge was created by us by changing times. We are really grateful that you cooperated. So we are the ones that who are very grateful. Members, I would now open this time for comments or questions to both the Minister and Judge Cameron. I have Honorable Clemens Breitenbach, Honorable Stephen Swart, Honorable Iako, and Honorable Nivot Tochen in that order, and then Honorable Engelbach in that order. Honorable Breitenbach.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and good afternoon to everybody. My first question is to both the Minister and to Justice Cameron, and it concerns remand detainees. We have, it's relatively self-evident that remand detainees can be dealt with, and those those detainees that Justice Cameron was referring to, the people who have bail but can't afford it, more particularly, they can be dealt with, and we have many suggestions as to how they can be dealt with. So I would ask both of them if we, at our workshop with JICS, if we could perhaps put that on the menu and come up with a real actionable plan. I have ideas. I'm sure the other members have ideas. I'm sure that Justice Cameron has many ideas, and I'm sure that the minister also has ideas. And between us, if we cannot come up with a workable solution, well, then it's just shame on us. But there's a lot of goodwill in the profession, and I'm quite sure that we can work out a system, a voluntary after hours or night court system where we can deal with those individuals at a very, very minuscule cost, and reduce that number of remand detainees exponentially. So I would like to hear each of their comments on that, please. Then with regards to JICS becoming an independent entity, what is the progress and what is the significant hold-up points so that we can address those at our workshop? Yeah, I have many questions for the minister about his very, very high-level overview of justice. I don't honestly think it, with the greatest of respect, did justice to, no pun intended, did justice to the state of the Justice Department. Again, he's making things sound like, it's all moonshine and roses. Well, it isn't, and we know it. But bearing in mind that both he and Justice Cameron are otherwise engaged, and we've already held them up, I will submit those questions to him in writing. So that will do for now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Honorable Breitenbach. Honorable Swart.
No, thank you, Chair, and greetings to everyone, to the Minister and Justice Cameron. From my side, thank you to JICS, thank you to the Minister for the input. I just wanted the Justice Cameron to give us an understanding. You referred to the application responding affidavit application for the extension in the Sonke gender justice issue. We obviously, the challenge we faced with this Parliament is, as you know, Justice, Parliament is instructed to amend the bill. Now, we know in previous extensions where in the New Nation movement matter, the court made it very clear that Parliament could have and indeed should have introduced a bill itself. So these are the issues we're struggling with as Parliament. We're sitting at the end of the day, the executive sits for 20 months, whatever reason, and we are continually sitting with constitutional court deadlines. And we know, in fact, you might have still been there when an application for an extension was refused. So we're sitting with this dilemma because we know in this particular case, there'll be a gap in the law. If we don't pass the bill, which is going to be almost impossible to give proper public participation, as many stakeholders have indicated. So we're sitting with a dilemma of an application, which I'm sure you would support, given the importance of this matter. So when is it anticipated that that application will be heard? Because we've got a number of constitutional court deadlines that we have to meet. But I just want to state, and we as a committee have said it, I've said it in Parliament when we dealt with the Smith decision as well, that it is unacceptable for Parliament to be placed under such pressure when the executive sits for whatever reason for so long to introduce bills to us. And there is a mechanism in place now to try to deal with that, but maybe you can just help us also deal with that issue, given your experience on the bench, but particularly now. What happens if the extension is not granted? Then you're sitting with a challenge. So we fully support the sentiments of that bill, the judgment to grant you the independence, and it's very sad it's taken so long. Just on the remand detainees, we know there are various provisions in the various pieces of legislation to deal with applications that can be brought to court to release those remand detainees where bail, where the conditions in prison, I think it's section 65E, various provisions that can be used. And it seems of the many years that we've been raising this issue, those provisions are not being used sufficiently that already exist in the law, where you have situations like this. And it's unacceptable that 2,700, as you indicated, have not been, the bail is there, that's costing the state far more to keep those remand detainees, many of whom could possibly be not guilty. So I really appreciate you raising that matter. I'm quite appalled at that matter you raised about the murder on camera 7 years, and that is something we need to address as well. It's unacceptable that JICS should not have the cooperation from the NPA and from the police when it comes to these matters. So that very briefly, Justice, is input on your side, and I just want to commend you and JICS and all the staff for the incredible work that they are doing. We have got limited time, Minister, so I would like to just raise a few very high-level matters with you, Minister.
Sorry, Honorable Swart. I'm not sure whether, Minister, I have misrepresented you, because I thought that I said it's Judge Cameron who has to leave early. You shifted your appointment in order to be here. Because if that is my understanding, so that members should not be limited thinking that you want to leave early. It's Judge Cameron who has got an appointment. Am I correct, Minister? Minister?
I think he's left already.
No, I think there's a communication. I think there's a network problem.
Maybe we should allow them.
Excuses for him. He can make his own excuses.
Maybe the minister should, maybe the Justice should respond and we can hear what the minister is.
Chairperson, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. I was saying that I'm not sure whether I have. I was saying that I'm not sure whether I have misrepresented you, because I said that it's Judge Cameron who has asked to leave early. You have reorganized your program in order to be here, so members should not be limited in terms of wanting to engage with you. So I just wanted to verify that. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, I did try to shift up until around 3:30, but we can try to 4 o'clock, Chairperson. We'll have
So,
to see.
So I think,
It's already 3:30.
Is it already 3:30 now?
it's-
3:05.
I am Johnny. So,
Chairperson, I think we can still go maybe until 4, but yeah, it's true that I have had things, but we can try to make it 4.
okay. That is the position.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, we can proceed, Mr.
Yes,
Honorable.
yes. No, I understand that it was largely due to the committee moving its time. So
Yes,
we will,
yes.
I'll put the questions and maybe either the DG and others can answer them. But just some high level issues that I wanted to raise with the Minister. And Minister, as you know, you addressed an investment conference earlier this week referring to a multidisciplinary anti-corruption agency, which we obviously welcome, but we would like, this has been mentioned before, I think even the President, and we'd like to know what progress there is in setting this up. Obviously, it's very important given the state capture and widespread corruption that took place and that is continually to take place. And so, Chair, so Minister, I would really like an indication, and is it anticipated that this unit will be, as a number of political parties have said, possibly even a Chapter 9 status? I would really like some input in that regard. Then the second very high level and pressing issue relates to the imminent possibility of grey listing by the Financial Action Task Force based on the mutual evaluation report. Now we know that Minister of Finance and Finance is dealing with a number of bills, but they only address 14 of the 20 areas and weaknesses identified in that mutual evaluation report. And we also know the consequences of grey listing will raise the country's risk profile to almost unacceptable levels and will have a devastating impact on the financial services and the economy. Now, one of its points that it in its October 21 assessment was relating to the prevention, monitoring, and prosecution on terrorism finance, where South Africa obtained the lowest possible score. You're aware of this. And the assessment stated that South Africa has convicted one person for terrorist financing since the last mutual evaluation. Minister, we need you to brief us as what steps are being taken to improve that evaluation and to avoid that grey listing and the devastating impact it will have. Because one part is dealing with all the amendments, the financial amendments that's taking place. The second part is obviously the investigation and prosecution of all these matters to avoid this. Chair, we will engage further with the department on a number of aspects, but I did want to just raise one of the issues highlighted by the Auditor General is the contingent liabilities for claims against the state. Now, we're aware there's a policy of management of state litigation contingent liabilities that has been put in place, and that was at the time of the end of the financial year. But it seems that the contingent liabilities for cases against the state is largely unknown, and it's estimated then at 146 billion. It could be far more. Could the Minister please give us an indication on the progress in the implementation of the management of state litigation, of managing contingent liabilities, which has been highlighted in the Auditor General's report? Getting back just quickly on the form or on the state capture report. We are aware that the President is going to give the implementation report following the recommendations of the Zondo Commission any day now. But part of that obviously has been the ongoing and previous briefings by the NPA, by yourself, have indicated that already steps are being taken to identify and to further investigate and prosecute persons involved, and including in that is extradition processes. So I'd like you to give us an update, or members, we will also engage with the NPA as to the implementation of the recommendations from the Zondo Commission, in particular when it comes to the steps I've alluded to the Anti-Corruption Agency, but in particular further steps and any update on the extradition process, which is relating to the Gupta brothers, where we understand they're still in prison. Is there any idea of when that will be completed? Chair, at a later stage, we'll ask a lot more questions to the departments, but for now, these are some of the pressing issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Swart. Honorable Yako.
Thank you very much, Chair. With your indulgence, please, I do need to keep this video off. My network is weird. I have two things. I think we're almost going to say the same thing. One, I agree with Honorable Breitenbach that the Minister did do a very broad overview and a very vague and unrealistic and almost false narrative of what the Department of Justice looks like. It's not like that. Yesterday, we had a presentation from the AG, which spoke of billions in irregular expenditure that has been sitting for years. Historically, it's been there, and we've got another almost billion that is sitting there. So it doesn't speak to a department that's well functioning. And we've seen for ourselves when we go to oversight that there's nothing that is in sync in the Department of Justice, be it between correctional services and the Department of Justice, between COJ, between judges, between everybody. It doesn't seem like it's working and it's in sync with each other. And there doesn't seem to be a will or an honesty approach to say, this is how we're going to fix it. When he spoke about legal aid, I'm wondering, because this country is sitting with a very big societal issue where most people cannot afford to have lawyers, and the more money you have, the better you're going to find in terms of justice in this country, and that is the reality. But how are we compensating lawyers who are working for legal aid in terms of assisting them and giving them capacity, tools, salaries, a working environment that is conducive for them to do their work, because they're dealing with a big workload, and we know that. So what is the minister doing in terms of that? I don't think he alluded to that at all. And secondly, as I said before, we are sitting with irregular expenditure that is amazingly, it's amazing. And it deals with supply chain, and that leads to corruption. And it seems like it's embedded within the Department of Justice. I want to know what conversations he's had with the department in terms of consequence management as to what is the plan. We need to find out from him, what is he planning to do with regards to that. And to Judge Cameron, we've had conversations, especially when we go to, our oversight was mainly centered around correctional services centers. And we've had this conversation since I came into this portfolio committee, where we speak about overcrowding, we speak about the capacity for prisons to hold space for prisoners and to provide, rehabilitation, and the correctional services part of what prisoners are about, what prisons are about. So I want to know, seeing that we've been constantly recognizing the fact that overcrowding comes from the remand detainees. So what conversations have you had with the judicial system? And this is the ideas that we've had and conversations that we've had with other members, in that we're finding that there's no linear approach when it comes to prisoners. When you get arrested and you go to the prison system, and let's say you stole bread, and therefore your bail is capped at, say, 2,000 Rand. You cannot afford 2,000 Rand if you stole bread. So basically you then adding to the amount of people that are in the prison system. So what conversations have you had? I mean, it's been a long time now with the judicial system to say, how are we going to find a way, of trimming the fat, so to speak, and understanding the different crimes that we have. We've got big violent crimes in this country, and most of those people are let go very easy to re-perpetrate again. Whereas we've got people that are sitting with very, I wouldn't say minor crimes, but crimes that they should have been let go and being back to society to be rehabilitated there, but we're not exercising that right, and yet we're sitting with a backlog, and we're sitting with a prison system that is very overcrowded at the moment. So what have you sat with each other and decided this is the approach, saying in 5 years' time, this is what we want to have, engaging with your magistrates, engaging with your judges, and saying that this is what we want to have, so that we are working with each other in a way that doesn't put a strain on one element and then lessen a strain on another. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Yako. Honorable Nivot Trochen.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good afternoon to everyone on the platform. Yes, good afternoon, Judge Cameron. I'm not sure if the Minister can hear me, but good afternoon. And thank you for both presentations. I would just like to add to what Honorable Swart asked with regards, or to the Minister. And in his response, I would like to add the infrastructure that when the committee does oversight and site visits, also see the aging infrastructure. We know the committee wants the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Public Works to come in front of us. So I'm just wondering if the Minister has met with the Minister of Public the Minister, and if anything has been discussed, what we're going to do about the aging infrastructure, etc., with regards to public works. And then to JICS, I see on slide 16, complaints handled by the CVs. One top number, which was 18,000, but then it says other. So 18,000 is quite a big number for other. So I'm curious what the breakdown of that 18,000 is. and the accumulation of that, what is it? And then the second highest is 6,000, over 6,000 with regards to transfer. So I'd like to know the transfer, does it deal, is it dealt with? Has it been dealt with or not yet? Has the 6,000 been reduced? And then the third highest is with regard to healthcare. And I'd like to understand what the complaints are regarding healthcare. Has it been dealt with as well? I hope the department is also listening to maybe potentially respond to those questions. Then with regard to the increase in the number of suicides happening, it's very concerning because I'd like to know if JICS or the department and the minister had any discussions with regards to doing research into this, of why there's an increase in the number of suicides. Some of the things I see where people overdose on the medication, where do they get such a big amount of medication, because it's supposed to be given daily by DCS? So where do they get access to so much to be able to overdose and then commit suicide? I think that's it for now, Chair. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Chair. My apologies. One more thing, Chair. I am trying to find the article. I'll look for it again and maybe send it to the minister. But with regards to a man who was arrested and he himself is mentally ill. Now, when he was incarcerated, something happened to him, but he didn't pay for his bill at the restaurant and they kept him in prison. So his father tried to get him out because he obviously needed medication and they needed to handle the mental illness. So I'm just asking this cluster discussing the treatment of mental illnesses who are unnecessarily imprisoned instead of alternative avenues where the parents can provide proof that there is a mental illness, and then it's just disregarded and they are imprisoned, and which then adds to the remand detainees and the overcrowding in the prisons as well. So I'm just pleading or asking that mental illnesses also then be treated with sensitivity in terms of incarceration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Engelbrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry that I keep my video off, but I think if I switch it on, people will not be able to hear what I'm saying. I have a couple of questions relating to the parole system reform, which the minister touched on during his address. I just want to know what involvement from the committee side would there be in terms of this reform process, and at what time frames are we looking at? Because all of us have read and heard about the reform of the parole system for quite some time. I've also posed some written questions to the minister to get some more detail about this, because there's a lot of things that's not clear. Firstly, the methodology that was used in assessing what is wrong with the current system. How was it done? Because only after you've assessed what is wrong can you change the system to mitigate those things. When will we only receive a progress report, or once it's done, will it then come to the committee? Because from our side, the involvement is not clear for me. And then lastly, about the remand detainees, or the prisoners of poverty, as the judge called them. Why can't the department look into modern technology where you have this device that you fix on someone's ankle that cannot be tampered with, that gives you the ability to remotely access the movement of people, which I think for this specific people, as well as people that committed less serious crimes, can be very useful in terms of lowering the number of remand detainees that we have to deal with on a constant basis. And also the same technology can and is being used internationally when it comes to parolees, where you have the ability to remotely verify where people are. If there's an attempt to tamper with this thing, an alarm goes off, you know exactly via GPS coordinates where this individual might be to be arrested or anything like that. And it will also assist to get the huge amount of absconders that I mean, report after report, we see this tremendous number of parole absconders that's costing lots of money just to trace and rearrest those people. And there's technology available. It's been in use for almost 20 years internationally. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Yako, is that an old hand or a new hand?
Sorry, Chair, it's an old hand. I'll lower it now.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I start with Judge Cameron?
Many thanks, Chairperson. I'm going to ask my colleagues to deal with some of these specific questions, for instance, the complaints. I want to thank this committee for its focus on the prisoners of poverty, and yes, to both the members of your committee, Chairperson, who said that there are ways of dealing with this. There definitely are. And there are many things, and that's why we've asked for the seminar with this committee. We are misdirecting our resources, and we are spending 25 billion, with respect, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, on a correctional services budget where we hold officials responsible for implementing a system that they didn't create. There are problems, as the committee knows, at Polesmoor right now, because correctional officers are complaining about degraded infrastructure that creates danger for them. And of course, the danger starts with the inmates themselves. So we are misdirecting our resources and our efforts. The JICS hold-up, I do want to say a word about that. And I'm happy to say that Parliament is off the hook, Mr. Chair. We would very gladly have blamed you and your committee, but you're off the hook. The application will be made by the Minister and his department. We will be served at JICS as a respondent. And to be blunt with the committee, I think we could have had it all wrapped up, Mr. Chair, if we just had the funding. We wanted to give JICS the independence that the Constitutional Court required us to have. We got our approval as an autonomous government component. It went right through all the processes of all the ministries and the departments. We got approval. And then I remember your member, Ms. Breitenbach, made a choice remark, which I won't repeat. Someone came up with the misguided, bright idea that JICS should be folded into the South African Human Rights Commission and that would save money. That idea came from Treasury. With great respect, as a retired judge, I think I can use the D word. It was a daft idea with respect. I am retired now, so I can be a bit outspoken. And that's what your members also thought, Mr. Chair. So we need money. We have to, and it's not a lot comparatively in that 25 billion budget. We are asking for about 15 million a year extra over 3 years. That is where my affidavit is going to blame the holdup. I just want to commend your member, Ms. Yaku, for drawing attention to the paradox. There's so many paradoxes where big criminals, white collar and others, get away with outrageous infractions of morality and crime, and small people don't get away with them. But let me stand back, Mr. Chair, and ask my officials. I think I will start with Mr. D'Souza and with Ms. Ngema, who's the head of our legal section, and ask them please to take some of the questions with your permission, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Chair and members, I'll just take the question on the complaints. Regarding, for example, transfer is always our number one complaint because inmates always want to go nearer to their houses, to their home. And then other is all the other complaints that doesn't, sorry, let me just put off my screen. It's just not falling into our categories. So it's, for example, clothing, bedding, toiletries, those things. And then I think I'll just give to Mr. Ngema for the rest.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, IJ. I'm going to take a question on whether we have conducted any research on why there is an increase on suicide in the places of incarceration. JICS does not have a capacity to do this research, but it's something that has been of a concern for JICS because of a number of suicides that we have witnessed in the correctional centers. Maybe it's something that we should look at and try and see what are the main reasons for this suicide in the correctional centers. I think that was the only question that was left. I don't know, IJ, whether I am missing any other thing. Thank you.
I would only add to Ms. Ngema's question, if I may answer, Mr. Chair, that these are all danger signals. The number of assaults, the number of suicides, the number of official on inmate on official assaults are all danger signals of the unsatisfactory state. And this is not, again, the fault of correctional officials. It's the fault of DPWI, which has not been efficient and responsive and prompt in dealing with infrastructural and other problems. And then, of course, there's the underlying problem of the structure of the prison, of carceral policy, which leads to overcrowding. But the suicides particularly are a very, these are people in utter despair, and they are signaling to us the danger of the conditions inside. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. D'Souza.
Thank you, Chair. I actually forgot to answer Ms. Nieuwoud on the medication and the suicides. The problem that is a question that we always also ask, where do the inmates get all the medicine? Because it's usually medicine on that is prescribed to them, such as ARVs or so. And then we are told by the nurses that it is just like any other clinic. They are getting their whole bunch of medicine for a week or for a month, and they have the responsibility of taking it themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Members, are all your questions answered? I think they are satisfied. I think I've made a mistake. I just have 3 questions that I forgot to ask the minister. One is the bill that deals with people who paid fines and who have criminal records during COVID. How far is that bill? Because we were hesitant to process that bill when COVID was still very strong. But I think now it's time that we need to ensure that we process that bill so that people who paid fines can have their criminal records expunged. And then the other one, which arose yesterday, what progress is being made in dealing with the information regulator? 2 issues. One is the issue of benefits to members of the information regulator and associated issues. And then there's the issue of the listing of the information regulator. They find it very difficult to operate under the circumstances where they are just viewed as part of the Department of Justice. It is creating operational problems for them. And then I think the last one is what are the plans in place to ensure that the outstanding Constitutional Court judgment, especially whose deadlines are next year, we are able to get those bills on time so that Parliament is able to meet the Constitutional Court deadlines, prioritizing those court judgments where there are no read-in provisions. And if they are not passed by Parliament, it's going to be a gap in the law, and then followed by those that have read-in provisions, because we are legislature, we must pass laws. But we would like a situation where we don't get bills 1 month before the expiry of the Concord deadlines. And in situations where the work is too much, how can we cooperate the legal services and people in the Justice Commission, so that people in the Justice Department and Correctional Services, so that we can have some of these bills processed as committee bills, because we even think that this JICS bill, we might need to process it as a committee bill, because it's quite clear that a relationship, in fact, the National Treasury and the department might take us many other months before we can receive the bill. Then the other issue under listing, Minister, which was not very pleasing to hear, is that the information regulator has written letters or a letter to National Treasury, and they never even received a response. I mean, no South African should be treated that way, especially an entity that is created by statute, which is supposed to be independent. They are not proposing love to National Treasury. They are writing to them in order to raise serious issues which affect their work, which affect service delivery, not to be responded to. I think it's very serious. Over to you, Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. In my initial address, we wanted to draw your attention to the important work done by the National Department you refer to as the Office of the Chief Justice, led by one of the senior accounting officers in government, the Secretary General, Me Sijosongwe. The Office of the Chief Justice achieved 87.5% of its annual targets and spent 93.1% of its final appropriation in ensuring an effective and efficient administrative support and contributing towards the MTSF priority of a capable and ethical developmental state. And Chapter 13 of the National Development Plan. During the 2021-22 financial year, OCJ had a vacancy rate of 9.1%, which is below the 10% target by DPSA. Subsequently, the OCJ had 48% of women representation on SMS level and 32% of youth representation of the department staff implement. In ensuring enhanced judicial performance, the OCJ conducted 168 skills enhancing judicial education courses for judicial officers and aspiring judicial officers, which was attended by 4,343 delegates. In ensuring improved court efficiency during the 2021-22 financial year, 86% of default judgments were finalized by the registrars within 14 days from date of receipts of the application. 99% of taxation of legal bills of course were finalized within 60 days from the date of set down, and 100% of the warrants of a release were delivered within 1 day of the release. And with regards to the questions that the honorable members have asked the Honorable Chairperson, it's a lot of them. I'll try to go through, and hopefully the ones that I may not be able to respond, the department's accounting officers and officials will give the details as and when they appear before the committee. The irregular expenditure that the honorable members were speaking to is one dealing with the historic case whose contract was awarded in 2016 and was deemed irregular. due to 3 service providers submitted fraudulent UIF certificates and an invalid provident fund certificate by only 1 service provider from the 3. So there is a discussion between the department and the National Treasury. What should be the appropriate root cause to remedy this situation and look at all available avenues, including looking at the criminal matters and so forth. So there is that discussion. Hopefully soon the National Treasury and the department will conclude as to what should be done. The other one related to the deviation from supply chain management processes when procuring outsourced legal services at the tune of 32.7 million. The department has implemented a procurement process to comply with the PFMA requirements until such time that the framework contract with National Treasury can be finalized. The other one related to a 7.8 million rands. This involves offsite storage and library services. This matter is also currently under final determination for referral to the National Treasury for condemnment. With regards to the remand detainees, I agree with the Honorable Bredenbach that there are various options that we can look into. And as we speak now, the department did look into Section 49G of the Correctional Services Act and the Section 63A of the Criminal Procedure Act, which relates to the reconsideration of the bail amount. There was a huge project that we undertook where heads of centers will engage, go and appear before the magistrates for reconsideration and so forth. Some of them were released, some were not released because magistrates are very reluctant to reduce the amount. They are of the view that once they have made a decision on the amount, it's a bit difficult to relook at the amount and so forth. But we have had engagements also with the NPA on the matter, the department and the NPA under Advocate Dikok. But I do agree with the Honorable Bredenbach that there could be more that could be done. So we remain open to that suggestion. If there is any suggestion as to how else can be done, we are open to look at it, and I think the department can look at it favorable to help with this issue related to the remand detainees, and including what the inspecting judge has said and what he believes could be contributed. And it also goes to the issue of the JICS bill, which we agree with the portfolio committee and JICS itself as to the procedure and the process to allow it to be autonomous. But yeah, what happened, and the allocation is not sitting with us. And when you have to deal with the bill, National Treasury has to concur in terms of the amounts that the entity needs. We have finally reached some compromise with the National Treasury in terms of the way forward with the current correctional service amendment that we believe could solve this challenge temporarily, while we are looking at the long-term solution in terms of the JICS bill. And I think this could work in the meantime for this temporary measure. And that is what we will be taking to court, that this is where we are. And I think the committee will be cited, as the judge said, and we will leave it to the court for its indulgence on the matter. And with regards to the multidisciplinary anti-corruption agency, indeed, it's something that is being discussed within the department and the presidency, and obviously it will be some of the issues that are being considered coming from in responding to the recommendations of the Zondo Commission. And Honorable Swart is asking whether we are looking at it being a Chapter 9 institution or an institution within the NPA. That is something that obviously will come up as we discuss the format of this agency. But I must state from our side, we are of the view that it should be an institution within the NPA, but there are NGOs and civil society groups and outside there that they are of the view that it should be a Chapter 9 institution. But for us to be able to immediately implement this, we are of the view that we may have to look at bringing those powers in the NPA Act that will enable the housing of the institution. In the meantime, within the NPA, while we want to debate the long-term kind of a plan, if the issue of the Chapter 9 institution comes into the picture, as and when there are deliberations amongst the colleagues and ourselves, because it will also obviously have to go through cabinet and public consultations and all those issues. And the issue that Honorable Salt has also raised, the imminent gray listing. Indeed, it is an issue of concern to us, but there's a number of matters that have been, there are a number of things that have been done to try and avert this possible gray listing. For example, the NPA has created an anti-money laundering desk comprising of representatives from the various business units in the institution. The international cooperation unit processes have been improved in respect of referrals relating to foreign predicate offenses by prioritizing, managing, and monitoring such cases. Staff capacity has also been improved. Mutual legal assistance requests on state capture investigations were made to several countries in 2018. These countries includes the USA, the UAE, India, Canada, the Netherlands, China. In respect of state capture matters relating to the UAE and India, the requests have been prioritized as enormous amounts of money and persons of interest are reported to be in these countries. And as honorable members are aware, there's also an extradition request that has been submitted for persons of interest in the UAE, and the ones that Mr. Honorable Swart has referred to, the Gupta brothers, are still in custody. And the central authority is in constant engagement with the UAE authorities in processing of the matter. And it is being processed by the central authority in the UAE. And we are hopeful that soon it will go through their court processes, which we obviously will not have control over. But there is mutual cooperation between the two states on the matter as we speak. And they are still in custody, the two people of interest. And we are hopeful that the matter will go through the courts in that country, which will then enable us to give a proper feedback. The NPA is also pursuing 7 foreign bribery matters wherein MLSA were sent to the foreign authorities outgoing requests. Lastly, the Asset Forfeiture Unit has since 19 November 2019 pursued cases of foreign predicate offending relating to charges of fraud, which is one of the focus areas in terms of the South Africa's risk assessment. So we do believe that there has been efforts that have been made by our authorities to avoid the gray listing, and this will be submitted when the assessment happen. And the department is also, as honorable members will be aware, in the process of amending the Trust Property Controls Act, bill, which is coming to the portfolio committee, which is one of the issues that was raised by FATF. So all these are aimed to show the South Africa's commitment to dealing with all these issues of trans-organized crime, and also issues related to terrorism and protection of constitutional democracy. Cabinet has approved the amendment bill that came through the police civilian secretariat. And there are also many other bills that are in the Department of Finance that have also been processed. The NPO amendment bill through social development that has also being processed by the Department of Social Development. So there is a variety of bills that are coming through to respond to this challenge. The issue of the management of the contingent liability against the state that Mr. Swart also spoke about, Honorable Swart. Indeed, that is the amount, the 146 billion. It is almost at that range where we are. Today, the Cabinet Committee on Justice and Crime has approved the state litigation strategy. It has also approved the policy on the management of the contingent liability, which will then address all the issues that the AG has raised. The coordination from various government departments and the state attorney to quantify the exact amount, the management of the whole process will now be guided by that policy, which we are hopeful that Cabinet in its next meeting next week will be able to approve. And in that way, we will be able to respond to this issue that the Honorable Swart has raised. As the department appears, you can request the SG to go into details as to what is contained in the policy. The implementation of the Zondo report, yes, the president will indeed report, but as you are aware, we have already provided support to the NPA and the ID to be able to respond to the recommendations in terms of the recommendations that are related to criminal prosecutions and investigations. So that is already happening, and I hope members can already see the tide turning in that regard. Honorable Yako, I'm not sure when she says is vague, unrealistic, and false. I think this is it's extreme. We have no intention to give false information to the committee. Our intention is to give what is accurate. And Chairperson, you said we must provide an overview because the details will definitely come with the department. And the department is coming. You can look at the details. Ours was to provide the overview, which I think we have done to enable this committee to engage with us on the issues that we deal with. And some of the issues she raised was the issue of the regular expenditure I've already responded to earlier on. The issues that relates to legal aid employees, salaries and the tools of trade. Legal aid South Africa is rated as one of the best employers in the country and one of the best law firms. The issues of salaries do come up from time to time. There have been engagements with the employees because of the challenges, the fiscal challenges that we are undergoing, which does not only affect legal aid, but all state officials and the salaries of all state officials. So there is ongoing engagement in that regard, but the legal aid remains committed to engage in a mutual respectful manner with the employees and to be able to respond to their issues in a fiscal sustainable way. The issues that relates to aging courts infrastructure, honorable members will remember that we had in one of our appearances said that we have started discussions with the public works to devolve some of the powers to enable the departments, both correctional services and DOJ, to do some of the basic maintenance in the courts. And I can state that there is now some agreement between public works and the department, and we are beginning to build that capability and capacity to deal with that maintenance. And I do think that the officials, as they appear, they can be able to give those details to respond to this issue. With regards to the parole system and the issues of suicide, maybe something that we can look into the high number of suicides that is happening. But with regards to the review of the parole system, it is done as we speak now by the the DME, the monitoring and evaluation in the presidency, which will give us an evaluation and an advice in terms of how we can review the system so that it is responsive, it is also aligned to the current societal challenges and the issues of non-compliance. How do we respond to that? I was a bit confused when Honorable Engelbrecht was speaking about the remand detention and also the use of technology, because the people who are on remand detention are in custody. They are not outside, they are in the cells. So the measures that we can only look into are the ones where those that have got bail and all that, but we can't have a system of technology that I think relates to the parole system and so forth. And honorable members are aware that the department once had that system, but there were challenges with regards to the contract. But there is now work that is happening in the department and some discussions with the CSIR. Maybe when that has come into fruition, we can be able to say to the portfolio committee, this now will be the direction that we will look into. Because CSIR says they do have some measures that they could help us in terms of this kind of technology. And the issues of the bills of expungements of criminal record that was raised by the chairperson, the judicial amendment bill will address this issue, and it is coming through the cabinet processes and committees. I hope that we will have it before the end of this quarter. Issues of the outstanding constitutional court's judgment, we note the points the chairperson is raising, and we will look into such matters. I will request that the issues that relates to the information regulator, we will have to respond in writing so that we can check all the issues that the chair has raised, particularly the letters that were written to National Treasury that were not responded to, the issues of the listing, and also the issues that relates to the benefits and the conditions of employment for the members of the information regulator. But I know that the department has been in engagements with the information regulator in relation in particular to these conditions of employment and the benefits issues. But I will request that I respond in writing, Chairperson. I hope that I've tried to cover most of the issues that were raised. If not, I will request the chair to allow the two DMs to add, and also with their indulgence request that the officials, as and when they appear, will be able to deal in detail with some of the issues that the honorable members have raised. Thank you, Chairperson.
No, thank you very much, Minister. I think just before we let you go, there is just something here. If we don't raise it, I think we'll be in dereliction of our duty. The Auditor General says that based on the audit outcomes of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development and South African Human Rights Commission, the credibility of the reported performance information was found to be questionable, as illustrated in the previous slide. Therefore, the reported targets, achievements might not be true reflection of the actual performance. I assume that you might have discussed this matter with the EXCO. It's quite, did you have an opportunity to discuss this matter with the EXCO with regards to performance, in fact, performance targets? Because it comes immediately after 79% by Justice, SIU 89%, and all of those, and then this one comes out. Did you have an opportunity to discuss that with the EXCO and the DG?
Yeah, Chairperson, yes, we did have an opportunity to discuss issues of performance. Obviously, it's not, there has been an improvement, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. What you are reading, I'm not sure. It does sound like it relates to the Human Rights Commission. I could not hear properly.
No, it's both of them. It's Justice and Human Rights Commission.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine, Chair. Yeah, we did have a discussion, and obviously the commitment is to improve from where we are. But there has been clear indications that there has been some kind of improvement from the last performance indicators and outcomes, and there's also some kind of credible information that has been provided to back up the outcomes.
No, thank you very much, Minister. We'll also raise it with the DG. The reason being that this is an annual performance report. We are required as the committee to reflect on the performance targets. So if there is something on a public document like this, we are required to give you an opportunity and the DG to respond.
I think you're muted, Chairperson.
Oh, on my side, I'm not muted.
I know, I think Minister Ozi ukuvile. Minister Ozi.
I think both the minister and Judge Cameron are excused. Can we now invite the new National Commissioner of Correctional Services, who is also an old broom? He has been with us for some time, but for the purposes of, he has just been appointed as the new Commissioner of Correctional Services. You are welcome. Can you take us through the annual report?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, for the words of welcome and also for the opportunity to present to the Portfolio Committee our annual report. Let me also indicate, Honorable Chairperson, that we have been listening attentively to the discussions in the previous phase, the first phase of the meeting. And as we present, we will also start providing responses to the issues that were raised. We were also observing the discussions between the Portfolio Committee and the Auditor General yesterday. And we are also prepared to provide responses to the issues that came up in the engagement between the Auditor General and the Portfolio Committee. Our presentation will be offered by the CDC, Chief Deputy Commissioner responsible for strategic management, and also the acting CFO. They will deal with the performance information and the financial management information respectively. Through you, Honorable Chairperson, I will request that we give them an opportunity to do the summary presentation.
Please note that you have 45 minutes to do all of the presentation.
Thank you, National Commissioner, and good afternoon, Chairperson and committee members. We have put the outline of the presentation, but we will not go through slide by slide. I will dispense of the process of going through the standing information and go straight to highlights around the performance environments of the organization for the period. So I'll be starting on slide 8, which is around program 2, and we'll be starting on security issues. On the indicator relating to escapes for the 2021-22 period, there were 22 escapes, which was a decrease of 81% from the 117 escapes that occurred in the previous year. So we'd also like to note the lowest recorded number of escapes in the past 27 years. And this arises from the commitment of security personnel, the implementation and monitoring of the standard operating procedures, and gang combating strategies. I would just also like to indicate that whilst the indicator measures the incidence of escape, we do conduct work in order to, how can I say, re-apprehend those escapees. And in the prior financial year, of the 117 escapees, 99 were rearrested, which is the rearrest rate of 85%. And in the current financial year, of the 22 that escaped, 13 were returned to custody, which is represents 59% recovery rate. If we go to slide 9, still on security matters, with regards to reported assaults, we did achieve there, where we reported 2.61% injuries against the target of 4.6%. With regards to unnatural deaths, we did not achieve due to high rate of suicides, and the number of deaths increased from 47 by 50%, and that was mainly due to suicides over the financial year. If we move to slide 10, we are still in program 2 around incarceration and overcrowding. The bar chart there reflects the status of overcrowding across our 6 regions in the departments. You will note that by sheer numbers, the Gauteng province and the Western Cape have the bigger inmate populations. But if we are looking at the extent of overcrowding based on available accommodation, then if you look at the first column, which is the Eastern Cape, they are overcrowded at a rate of 62%, which is followed by Gauteng, who are 40% overcrowded. KZN is 21% overcrowded, as well as Limpopo, Mpumalanga Northwest. And then the Free State Northern Cape region is overcrowded by 2%. And the Western Cape is overcrowded at a rate of 50%. If we go to slide 11, which still we are reflecting on the issues of overcrowding. I think it is impacted on by 2 factors, which we'll reflect on, but mainly, as has been reflected on in the discussions up to this point, that it does hamper the maintaining of inmate health and providing incarceration in a safe and humane environment. So we did lose 758 bed spaces in the financial year, which was due to the closure of the Ebuseni, Waterfall, Medium B, Umzinto, and Paris correctional facilities. The other exercise that we undertook in line with the Auditor General was to ensure that the bed space that we do report as being available is indeed accurate. And after that exercise, we had to adjust the available bed space from 110,836 down to 108,804. So we have an actual loss from the closure of centers and also a recalculation of the actual available bed space, which further reduced the availability. So, which means that with the bed space of 108,000 for the financial year, the overcrowding was at 31.63%. On bullet point 5, the inmate population increased by 2,275 from 140,942 to 143,223 from 2020 2021, which was an increase of 1.59%. However, on reflection on this bullet point, if you look at the progression from the end of the financial year that we're reporting on to date, as of yesterday, the population is now sitting at 150,439, which means that for the period, for the whole year, the previous year, we only increased with 2,275 warm bodies. Within a period of 6 months, we have added another 7,216, which is on average about 1,200 offenders or accumulation of offenders per month. And if we extrapolate that to the end of the year, then we'll be talking about adding about an additional 14,000, which would be taking us into the region of about 157,000 population, which means we're going back to the historical figures where we were about 5 years ago of 160,000 inmates, which means that all the efforts of the special remission and the special parole dispensation are being undone, if I may put it that way, by the current trends. Maybe also to contrast that, and maybe in part to respond to the issue of the onboarding of facilities or the addition of bed space by increasing facilities. Over the past 7 years, we have completed, I think it was about 6 projects. Van Reinstop in the Western Cape, Standerton in Mpumalanga, Tanin in Limpopo, Escort and Matatiele in KZN, and CMAX in Gauteng. Total was 1,907 beds that was introduced. Now, against these figures that I'm giving you, it will indicate that the bed space addition is far outstripped by the growth in the population. If we look at the infrastructure projects that are coming on board for the 2023 year, in the year 2023, the Parys Correctional Center should be coming back on with 176 beds, and then Burgersdorp in the Eastern Cape with 500 beds, but that is only in 2026. So the issue of dealing with the inflow into the correctional system, as was highlighted by the judge earlier as well, is something that seriously needs to be looked at. I will move on to slide 12. This was just the issue around remand detainees. Just to indicate again, because of the high population in Gauteng and the Western Cape, the population of remand detainees is also reflected in those areas. But also maybe to highlight on the point 4 there, that we submitted 16,064 applications for bail review, and only 3,270 or 20% of those submitted were successful, which would go to the issues that have been discussed earlier in this forum. I think if you look at that bar chart, or if you look at the bars at the bottom there as well, it will indicate that the population of remand detainees stabilizes around 46,000, 47,000 thereabouts, despite the ins and outs or the movements of admissions and releases. We are steady around 46 or 47,000 from 2017-18. The spike in 2019-20 was purely because of the COVID environment, where there were violations of the disaster management regulations, which resulted in more intake, but then the courts simultaneously were also not in operation, so we held people for longer. If we move on to slide 13, still under program 2, but now moving towards rehabilitation. On correctional programs, a total of 78,148 offenders with correctional centers plans, completed correctional programs. And this was also possible under COVID-19 environment by the usage of custodial officials to stand in and assist. Under educational and skills development programs, the collaboration with Department of Basic Education and Higher Education has yielded the delivery of general education, further education and training, and higher education and training, and computer-based training courses as well. There were 8,477 offenders who participated in educational programs, as compared to 5,840 in the prior year, which is a 45% increase. With regards to grade 12, there was a 77% pass rate, which, given the COVID circumstances, we can consider to be a remarkable achievement. We achieved 100% pass rates in KZN, in the Free State Northern Cape, and 95% in the Western Cape. Additionally, we had 2,200 offenders who participated in CETA accredited skills, 6,922 offenders who participated in engineering studies, business studies, and vocational certificates and event programs. I think on the last one there, we had also TVET programs, which were also given to offenders, and the programs and the skills are aligned to the requirements of the environment in which the offenders would be released into. Slide 14, still on rehabilitation. This is now around production workshops. The minister did indicate that we continue to implement the self-sufficiency and sustainability strategic framework. And we have entered into partnerships with other government departments for the manufacturing and supply of various goods. And that the departments include public works, defense, environment, forestry, and fisheries. With regards to production, we produced 9 tons of vegetables, about 473,256 kgs of beef, which is an improvement of 10% on the prior year. With regards to pork, there was 1.7 tons that was produced. There was a slight drop there because of the closure of the Mthatha piggery, and also that was due to the swine flu disease outbreak. However, that has since reopened, and therefore we anticipate that the pork production will come back to the requisite production levels. There were 754,000 kgs of chicken. So it's 6 million liters of milk, 334,000 kgs of fruit. We produced 374,000 cloth masks for usage within the facilities. And we had 1,106 offenders who worked in production workshops, and an average of 2,996 offenders who worked in the agricultural environment a day. We go to slide 15. We are still on rehabilitation and social work, psychological and spiritual services. The highlights under which we entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Prem Rawat Foundation, and this was for the rendering of spiritual care services and programs within the correctional environment. There was also a National Interfaith Board of Corrections, which was launched in Johannesburg at the Border B management area, and the intention of which was to bridge animosity and instill mutual respect within the correctional environment. 113,833 offenders, parolees, and probationers received social work services. 217,177 inmates received spiritual care services, and 44,327 inmates received psychological services for the period under review. Slide 16. On the TB cure rate, we achieved 94% against a target of 91%. And on the offender viral load suppression rate, at 12 months, we achieved 91%. And 69,494 inmates were screened for diabetes, 68,385 inmates were screened for hypertension. 100% of identified inmates were tested and 100% did recover from COVID-19. Slide 17. Still on care. One of the highlights there was the formal launch of the JICS COVID-19 vaccination program for officials and inmates, which occurred in July. And as part of the process of managing the pandemic within the facilities, the vaccination rollout within the departments was being monitored through the establishment of vaccine rollout coordinating committees comprising of the healthcare professionals. With regards to state patients, there was an overall decrease of 63 inmates from 186 to 123, which was a decrease of 33.8%. And I think this is largely mainly due to the cooperation between the departments and the Department of Health in managing this population. With regards to therapeutic diets, 6% of those who qualified were prescribed with therapeutic diets against the target of 12%. This is considered an achievement because the less of the therapeutic diets or specialized diets that we have to deal with is an indication of the level of health of the inmates with regards to the various diseases that require those specialized meals. If we go to slide 18, where we are on social reintegration, there was an average caseload of 60,711 in the community correction system, comprising of 52,054 parolees, 7,803 probationers, and 854 awaiting trial persons. And the performance was 99% of parolees and probationers, well, parolees and probationers without violation. During the same period, 16,951 victims and 5,758 offenders, parolees and probationers participated in restorative justice programs. And this was assisted by the 88 social auxiliary workers who assisted in tracing and preparing victims for their participation in the restorative justice program. In support of the DDM approach and also enhancing reintegration, 592 economic opportunities to prepare offenders, parolees, and probationers to be economically empowered and be able to venture into business and other forms of employment for improvement of their livelihoods were carried out. We also saw an increased participation of parolees and probationers in community initiatives from 6,002 to 17,488. And also we had the increase in community Izimbizo, which increased from 11 to 543. And this is the increase in performance of those two is also an indication of the relaxing of the disaster management regulations, which allowed for us to be able to engage with larger crowds in a less restricted manner. Go to slide 19. On significant events, we have dwelt quite significantly on the self-sustainability and sufficiency framework, which was launched, and as the minister indicated, the first annual report has been released. For Mandela Month, 27 parolees responded positively to the call to assist in restoring a court. There was a dialogue session as a solution to seeking gender-based violence and femicide-related matters. And this panel of the panel consisted of members from the DCS, those within the Justice Cluster, so it's Department of Justice, the NPA, etc., and also social development. There was also security training conducted for female officials for 60 female officials from maximum correctional centers. which occurred over a 3-week period at the Kroonstad Training College. The minister also alluded to the tools of trade and the heads of correctional center sessions that were held, which was also aimed at reflecting on the challenges pertaining to the alarming number of security incidents. We had an ex-offender who received a sewing machine that was donated by ABOC on the 11th of November. And also the issue that was raised by the minister with regards to the implementing of the bail protocol to reduce the number of Myanmar detainees. There was also sessions that were held with the heads of correctional services for them to become more proactive. And we also did, as is the annual calendar event, the 16 days of activism in November. Chair and members, I would like to move to slide 22. As we are reporting on a 5-year strategic plan, we are tracking progress not only on the annual performance, but just to see how well we are progressing towards the 5-year targets that we have achieved for ourselves in specific areas that, in terms of our value chain, would measure how we are contributing or actually executing on our mandate effectively. Our only focus on the areas where we have not or we are behind in terms of working towards the 5-year target. The first strategic target is, or the first outcome in the strategic plan of improved case management processes for inmates, of which the outcome indicator is the percentage increase in offenders' profiles approved for placement for release. Now, we are saying that for the period, we are saying that we wanted a 4% increase. However, as at this point, we are sitting at a regression of 1.69%. Now, the main barriers, the main issue is this was the barriers for the successful placement on parole was due to the unavailability of support systems, further charges, and other elements that were considered by the parole boards in referring those profiles back, and therefore not releasing these people into the system of community correction. So whilst we acknowledge that there are challenges with the parole system, but the fact that we have this, this situation is that we are alive to the fact that there are elements of the process that leads to releasing offenders on parole that we need to firm up on and that we need to improve. So that is work in progress, and that is something that we're keeping a firm eye on. If we go to slide 23, the next outcome, the next outcome, which is successful reintegration of all of those under the care of the departments. We have an outcome indicator, which is a percentage increase in offenders under the system of community corrections. Again, we wanted an increase of 0.7%, but we are sitting at -0.11%. And this is due to parole revocations, which contributed to the decrease in the community corrections caseload, which was a decrease of 6,486. And also the socioeconomic issues that result in people offending and coming back into the system. But I think also converse to that is that whilst we have the issues of revocations and people coming back and the social economic impact, there are also the issues of alternative sentencing that can increase the participation of persons in the community corrections environment rather than them being incarcerated. So once again, the diversion and alternative sentencing is something that is needs to be considered and canvassed quite robustly. Go to slide 24. On a high-performing and ethical organization, the percentage of smart technology implemented, I think that is also an area that we'll look at when we're looking at the APP indicators. but I think maybe I'll dwell with it there. But we have an IT modernization project underway, where we are also working in collaboration with the CSIR, which is going to assist us to actually speed up the delivery of the modernized technology environment of the department. Go to slide 25. You look at the summary of performance, you'll see that on the area of underachievement, the most of the indicators that are not achieved are under program 1, and then the 3 under program 2. So that would indicate that with regards to the core mandate of the department, we are achieving 100% of the indicators that we've set for ourselves in the majority of the programs, except for, as I said, the one area under incarceration, which will reflect on the issues shortly. Then slide 26. As the Auditor General indicated yesterday, we have achieved 80% of the performance indicators that we set for ourselves, and not achieved 20. We'll proceed to looking at the targets not achieved, i.e. the 6 under program 1 and the 2 under program 2, or the 3 under program 2. Slide 29. Under sub-program HR in program 1, the percentage compliance to the employment equity plan for the SMS members, and that was with regards to females, where we slightly missed the target. The target was 50%, we achieved 49%, and that would have been due to the moratorium that was in place, but also there was an exit, or there was a termination of four SMS officials, which impacted on that. With regards to persons with disabilities, also at SMS level, that is also attributed to the temporary moratorium, but that has since been lifted. And I think, as might be noticed, that we are advertising quite prolifically in the papers for the filling of various positions throughout the line and support functions. Under sub-program finance, the business case for revenue generation and retention, that was not achieved at the time of reporting, because there was still consultation internally and with the National Treasury. But we would want to report that in the current financial year, Treasury has since approved that the department can retain 100% of all the revenue that it generates from the various self-sufficiency endeavors that it undertakes. So therefore, this indicator will fall away, and we will begin to pursue the measurement of the self-sustainability. On sub-program IT, the number of sites where mesh network Okay, all right. Okay, so as I indicated, that in terms of the internal resources and collaboration with the CSIR, we are going to speed up on the delivery of all these IT deliverables. The other indicator there is a JICS indicator, which they did report on. If we go to slide 31, which is the percentage of confirmed unnatural deaths in correctional facilities, we were 38% over a target of 32%. We did indicate that suicide was a leading cause of unnatural deaths in correctional facilities due to a lack of patrolling in the units. as required in terms of our standard operating procedures. So going forward, there are efforts to increase that and to ensure that we do implement the standard operating procedures as intended. I think on slide 32, I think I've been through that in my earlier discourse, so I won't go into that again. If I may then take it to slide 77. All right, well, whilst we're getting that ready, I'd just like the members to focus on the last column, because the other detail I'll focus on the next slide. But basically to indicate that in 2016-17, our qualification was around capital works in progress, which was resolved in that it is now being audited in the DPWI environment. So that will not reoccur going forward. In the 2017-18, this was on commitments. 18-19 was commitments and irregular expenditure. 2019-20 was also irregular expenditure. And then we had unqualified findings for the last financial years. On the journey towards the clean audit, if we are on slide 78. I'd like the members again to focus on the graph on the right-hand side, which shows that in 2015-16, we had a total number of 667 audit findings, plus the qualification. Now we are sitting for the 2021-22 on 130. And that 130 is a decrease from 148 in the prior year, which is a 12% decrease. So we can observe that we are working diligently at reducing the findings around our internal control environment with a view towards getting to a clean audit administration. Chair, at this juncture, I will hand over to the CFO to carry on with the presentation.
Okay, thanks. Seriously, firstly, let me greet the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members, honorable Minister, Deputy Minister of Department of Correctional Service, National Commissioner, colleagues that are in the meeting and even on the platform. So just to proceed with the presentation, I'm also mindful of the 45 minutes, the remainder of the time. In terms of, I'll move to slide 79. Under slide 79, to take from the comments from my previous colleague, that there was an improvement of 130 findings, but I also want to indicate, Chair, that the 148 findings that were raised in the year 2021 financial year, the department implemented 98% of those. And that was mainly achieved due to the intervention of our executive and also senior management, including the National Commissioner, where we had a debriefing with AG, Audit Committee, to be able to develop the audit action plan so that we can be able to improve. So therefore, under the 130 findings, a similar process has been undertaken to develop the audit action plan so that we can be able to reduce this particular 130 findings, and then so that we can achieve what we anticipated to achieve, which is the clean audit administration. As indicated, Chair, that in terms of the financial statement, there were no material findings. Not going to dwell much on that. But also in terms of item 4, where they've raised the issues of splitting of cases and consequence management, I will deal with that in the next slide. And also to indicate that there was an adjustment specifically on our annual performance report from 5 completed infrastructure and then to 6. And also there was an issues raised under our IT environment, as I've indicated, that the 98% that we have achieved in the 2021 implementation of audit action plan, 2%, it was mainly due to challenges within IT. Moving to slide 80, Chairperson, under slide 8, I just want to give a little bit of context, specifically in terms of the presentation that was made by Auditor General under material irregularity. That out of the 76 million of the material irregularity that has been raised, or the amount that has been paid, 1 million of that particular amount is the amount that AG raised as a material irregularity for payments that were not made within 30 days. Over and above that, there was also a question that was the report submitted as per the commitment from the National Commissioner? Yes, there was an investigation that has been undertaken. The report has been submitted, and the department will action the report based on the findings raised in terms of under the material irregularity. Moving to the issue of procurement and contract management. Under procurement and contract management, it's been a thorny issue within the department, specifically in terms of the splitting of cases for perishables and non-perishables, which emanating to the increasing of our irregular expenditure each and every financial year. But also safe to say that that particular increasing of irregular expenditure, the department has dealt with it and has secured an exemption from National Treasury to address that, and also further securing contracts to be able to deal with the non-availability of contracts in that particular on those commodities. Consequence management, there was an indication from AG that not all irregular and fruitless expenditure were investigated. We agree with that. So the department has put a system in place, which we've appointed investigators, where those particular investigators must be able to look in terms of the investigation process and ensure that we investigate all those particular transactions that we found to be irregular on also fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Just to re-emphasize, Chair, in terms of the figures to date, specifically under consequence management, is that under irregular expenditure, we had transactions to the amount, 1,095 transactions. To date, we have completed an investigation of 872. We've got 223 that are still in progress. And we had 40 that we are not actually investigated, which now we've allocated investigators to go to proceed with those particular investigations. Moving to slide 81, Chair, under irregular expenditure, the department has put systems and controls in place to address the issue relating to the increasing irregular expenditure. As I've indicated in my previous slide, that we requested the exemption from Treasury and also securing our contract. But over and above that, in terms of the presentation that was made by AG, Chair, you'll realize that there's a splitting of cases of 755, and also there's 198 of other irregular expenditure. So the 755, we've implemented the exemption. The 198, we've put systems in place and internal controls, where we've developed a departmental control committee, where they are looking at all transactions from the value of 1 million and above, meaning that all the transactions that are quotation, we've realized that that's one of the weaknesses there. And furthermore, we have put a standard operating procedure that we have implemented so that we can be able to address. And so this particular internal controls, they were more implemented in the month of February and March. Therefore, the fruits of those particular development could not be realized within this particular financial year. But as the department, we don't have doubt that in this moving forward, we will realize this particular internal control. Safe to say that we've made an analysis to check in terms of how much of irregular expenditure we've prevented to date, and it's 409 million, which we have prevented not to reoccur. In terms of the performance information, as I've indicated earlier, that there was a movement, specifically on the previous slides, where we have to go to disclose our performance information from 5 to 6. But however, in terms of that was emanated from record keeping between us and DPWI, but that particular matter has been addressed. We'll be addressed with them moving forward so that we don't find ourselves in the very same predicament. Moving to slide 82, Chair, I will quickly take the committee through the expenditure of the department, but zooming into the few slides. We are moving to slide number 82. The department have an adjusted budget of 25 billion. Out of the 25 billion, we have spent actually 25,943. 252, we have spent 25,693.663, which we had actually a variance of 249,619, and then which constitutes a percentage of 99.04%. Maybe just to indicate, Chair, moving to slide number 83, there's an indication of the 249 where it indicates that mostly actually that particular underspending, it was mainly in terms of two areas, which is the compensation on employee and also the capital project. Under compensation of employee, they put a system in place where the National Commissioner has adjusted the moratorium to fill positions, and the capital works is still a challenge because of the dependency is within DPWI, which we're trying to address each and every time with them. Also going to slide 85, Chair, just to zoom into interest on land, just to be able to indicate to the chairperson and the committee that you'll realize that this particular 76 million that was referring to where it was a payment of a court order, it has found expression under that because it was not budgeted for chairperson. And then moving to slide 96, chairperson, slide 96 demonstrate an overall expenditure and underspending that I was referring to, where you realize that the compensation of employee was 262 million, and then also the payment on capital assets was 211. But with the totals, you'll realize under goods and services with the overspending and also interest on land, the 73 and the 130 where we've made the payments of the initial court judgment, then they offset the total expenditure to 249 million. Jumping to slide number 104, Chair, where I want to also indicate to the committee that in terms of the revenue collection, the department estimated the revenue collection of 155, where we've over collected with 58 million, resulted to 586 million collection. This was mainly due to the payments received from the Department of Justice of the previous financial year. Thanks, Chairperson. My presentation will end there. I've looked at the time, we are exactly 45 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. If you can remove the slide, our chairperson has just been cut out of the system and load shedded. I will stand in for him until he's back. Thank you, Acting CFO. Any further points, National Commissioner, before we proceed?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. We do not have any further point to make.
Okay. Thank you very much. Honorable members, that's the presentation from DCS on their annual report. May I invite you to interact with this? Honorable DM, if you are here, we'll check you. Perhaps you want to say something at the end. Any questions, comments, clarities, or you all happy, honorable members? I see DM, you wanted to come in now?
No, I wanted to confirm, Chair, that I'm available.
Okay. Yes, I did pick that up in the system, so I will allow you to speak later on, if that's okay with you.
Actually, if I may.
Go ahead, DM.
Thanks. The one comment that I wanted to make excuse me, is with regard to a suggestion that was made by Honorable Vilma Nivo-Jochen as to a way of addressing the overcrowding occasioned by remand detainees who are not in a position to pay low amounts in bail. She was suggesting, and I think was supported by Judge Cameron, that maybe they should be allowed out to serve their punishment under supervision by correctional services. But the problem with that suggestion would be that remand detainees are generally people who are yet to complete their trials. They may not have been found guilty, they may not have been sentenced, and therefore it would be impracticable, Chairperson, for that suggestion to be taken into consideration, because we would know what punishment they are likely to get at the end of the trial. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister Olomisa. Honorable members, may I now invite you to interact with the presentation. Honorable Swart, followed by Honorable Vilma Nivo-Jochen.
Thank you. Thank you, Acting Chair. I just wanted to thank the department for the lengthy inputs and for the annual report. And I don't think I've interacted with the Commissioner. Congratulations to the Commissioner. I appreciate that we've received a lot of information we'll be going through, but I think for us always the issue of the overcrowding and the issue of the remand detainees, that obviously impacts upon the department because it is a receiving department. So we need to appreciate the fact that when the courts are not operating properly or there's a problem, as Legal Aid Board indicated, with transcriptions, appeals, and cases are postponed, such as happened during COVID-19, it increases the number of remand detainees. And I think in our short interaction with JICS, we refer to the existing legislation, and I think the presenters also indicated that when it comes to low amounts of bail that are being set, it doesn't make sense. And the department goes back to court in terms of the provisions of Section 49 and Section, I think it's 63E, to reassess the bail. But judicial officers are not inclined to go back on what they've said already. So I think when, Honorable Acting Chair, I think you also on the Magistrates Commission, but maybe this is an issue that we need to raise with the judiciary as well, because it doesn't make sense to me to have set a very low bail of 500 Rand when the person is not a great danger to society, and then it's costing the state 500 Rand a day to have that person as a remand detainee when that person could in fact be not guilty. So the aspects are to speed up the completion of the trials as quickly as possible. And then, of course, to be monitoring the remand detainees and to see to what degree. There's another provision that where the health in the prison is of such a nature, the prison head can approach courts and say, look, we need to release remand detainees. So there are existing provisions, but I think we need to engage, whilst not impacting on the separation of powers, just to impact. And this has been, as long as I can remember, an issue, remand detainees. But it is something that maybe we can assist the department with, because they are the receiving. They receive what, and everyone is crying out for greater and harsher penalties, and we understand that from the criminal justice sector. But yeah, you've got a receiving department. So I just want to thank them for the hard work that they do, which brings me to the second point, which is the infrastructure. And we heard earlier of issues that where you've got officials' lives have been put in danger due to infrastructure that's not been properly maintained by public works. Now, it's the perennial problem with public works that we're experiencing everywhere. And maybe this is an issue we need to re-emphasize again, to take up, and it doesn't seem to be helping at a ministerial level, but maybe we can meet with the Public Works Portfolio Committee and say, how can we address the issues of the challenges that correctional services is experiencing due to public works? We see underspending on infrastructure due to public works. So a lot of the issues here are not necessarily the blame of correctional services. And I think that we can maybe assist the department in that regard. Thank you, Acting Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Swart, for those valuable contributions. Thank you. Honorable Velma Nivo-Drachen.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to everybody on the platform. And thank you for the presentation by DCS. I have a few questions. I would like to start off with what the AG said to us yesterday in terms of payments that are not done within 30 days. And yes, you did say that there are investigations in that regard, but the AG said that DCS was supposed to respond to AG on the 30th of September, and nothing had happened, or to date, nothing has happened, and we are now in October the 13th, 14th. So I would like to get an update with regards to that investigation, and also why DCS did not report back to the AG by the stipulated date. I would also like to know why payments are not settled, the reasons why payments are not settled within 30 days. Then in terms of parolees, when the families do not want to sign or confirm that their family member can be released, then what does DCS do? What are the alternatives when a family won't sign off on that release? And then in terms of unnatural deaths, JICS gives a particular figure, 104, and the department says 54. So I'd like to understand the discrepancies. Why are these figures different? And then you also mentioned lack of patrolling, and you'll do something about that. And so the question is, why was there insufficient patrolling? Why did that happen anyway? And we've seen an increase in catering costs in these two financial years, these two preceding financial years. And I just want to The 1 year it's 156,000, and then in the following year it was over 1 million. So why such a huge jump? And then also in the rehabilitation program, it was 555,000 and then increased to 6 million. These are very huge variances. If you could explain why that has happened. And there's also another increase. Oh, my handwriting is a bit terrible. Reintegration, 1.7 million for travel and subsidy and subsistence. That was 2020, 2021, and then it increased to 4.6 million in 21, 22. Again, if you could provide reasons for this huge jump. And that is all, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Nivot Drochen. Any other member who wants to make a contribution before I
can the host please unpin? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. None so far. National Commissioner. National Commissioner and your team. Can you reflect on those two contributions?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. DC, Deputy Commissioner Ambigay Naker will provide a response to the question on the differences between the figures from JICS and DCS with regards to a natural death, as it was raised by Honorable Velma Nivot Drochen. The acting CFO will address the issue of the investigation report on that was not yet submitted to the Auditor General. I just want to respond on the issue of the unnatural death and the lack of patrolling. The point that we are making, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, is that we do not have sufficient personnel to do consistent patrolling, and the time lapse between the movement of our security officials especially with regards to the accommodation where we are accommodating offenders that are in single cells or in isolation cells. In most instances, we find that is what gives a window to a risk of unnatural death. I must also add, Honorable Chairperson, that we have actually done an analysis as the department on the causes of unnatural death, and we can provide actually the report to the committee tomorrow morning still, because it starts to address the issue that was raised by honorable members, that we need to look at the causes and we need to scientifically start addressing this issue so that we can deal with it on a sustainable basis. The acting CFO will also deal with the issue of the increase in catering costs and subsistence and travel. But I must indicate, Honorable Chairperson, that when the report was presented, there was an indication that our activities with regards to outreach have increased, and because of that, obviously that will have a direct impact on the cost of travel and subsistence, but the acting CFO will deal with that quite extensively. There was an issue also that there were issues that were raised by Honorable Swart. I must indicate, Honorable Chairperson, that we appreciate a lot the understanding from the portfolio committee with regards to challenges we face on overcrowding and also the impact of remand detainees on the numbers that we are dealing with as the Department of Correctional Services on a daily basis. We, on a monthly basis, do submit to the justice system with regards to the options that we have for referral to courts with regards to consideration of length of detention, the issue of bail review, applications in terms of section 63A and section 63(1). As Honorable Swart was indicating, we even have statistics with regards to the successes and where we have not been successful with regards to the review that we will request from the justice system. Our success rate, I must indicate, is always below or just above 20%, but we continue to make these submissions with regards to the movement that we would like to see improving on the remand detainees numbers that we have as the department. We also welcome the comment by Honorable Swart on the issue of infrastructure. We continue to monitor Department of Public Works and infrastructure on a weekly basis. We troubleshoot to make sure that our projects move through the project pipeline. But yes, it is a very difficult task to deal with because we end up tracing some of our projects to some officials in public works and all that. So it's a bit tedious to do that, but we continue to do that on a weekly basis. The minister has had, and the deputy minister has had a meeting with the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. There is a plan of action that we agreed on, and the commitment is that both ministers and deputy ministers will continue to assist us in ensuring that the action plan is implemented by ourselves as administrators. Through your indulgence, Honorable Chairperson, I would request that the colleagues then deal with the other issues that are remaining.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. In terms of the discrepancy between data between JICS and JICS, I think we must just mention that throughout the annual report process, the department is in constant communication with JICS.
You come closer to the mic, a bit sounding far.
Apologies for that. I think we just wanted to highlight that throughout the annual report process, the department and the JICS work very closely in terms of the data that's published in the annual report. But if we go specifically to the unnatural death, on the side of DCS, we report confirmed unnatural death. So we report deaths where we have received post-mortem reports or death certificates, and we can confirm that those deaths were actually unnatural. And those figures are actually also audited by the AG. In some cases, there could be an unnatural death that has occurred in a financial year, but only confirmed in the following year, and we will record it then in the year when it is confirmed as unnatural. So also just to add in terms of the root causes for the unnatural deaths, in addition to what the National Commission has mentioned, we also noted that the main cause of suicide was hanging. And when we indicated that there was a lack of patrolling in correctional facilities, we noted that a lot of these incidents happen after lockup when there is reduced capacity at the correctional centers. So when there are less movements and less officials required to actually take offenders to rehabilitation or to court, etc., there is additional capacity, whereas after lockup, there is reduced capacity at the correctional center. And that has obviously contributed as well to the lack of patrolling. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, National Commissioner. And for the questions. in terms of the payment not made within 30 days, the AG's question yesterday, they were questioning in terms of why we did not provide them with the report. So our response to AG, we indicated to them that we have just received the report and it has to be looked at by the department. And then once the National Commissioner has looked at the report, then we can be able to supply it to AG with the commitment. So in terms of the reasons why these particular payments were not made within 30 days, that was the reason why the National Commissioner requested an investigation so that we can determine the fact that who has at fault and who did not actually perform what we are supposed to perform, so that we can be able to process the particular payment in time. The question relating to, I'll start with the question relating to travel and subsistence. The travel and subsistence has increased based in terms of the number of activities within the department, outreach programs, and then within JICS. So that's what caused the increase specifically in terms of the travel and the subsistence. And then the increase specifically related to catering, it was mainly in terms of, among others, the nutritional services that we provide into the training colleges at this particular point in time. That's also had actually an impact in terms of the increase on the year under review. Thanks.
Honorable Chairperson, if I may, with your permission, there is a question that one did not deal with from Honorable Velma Niveau-Drechen. The question on interventions that we implement if family members do not want to sign up for a parolee. What we normally do is to, obviously we start with immediate family members. We then assist to track the extended family members. We work with our parole board members to do that because most of them come from the communities around. We also then work with community leaders, traditional leaders, and also our councillors in instances where we have not succeeded at all to get family members to sign up. We then allocate these parolees to halfway houses, because at least there they will have an environment that provides guardianship, and we can then be able to monitor them as they serve their sentence under the parole system. I must indicate that the challenge here is sometimes the fact that some of these offenders would have committed crime in their own families, so their own family members would be victims. So through the victim offender dialogue processes, they might not have accepted that they can live in the same, family house with the same, offender that has committed such a crime. That's the point that I just wanted to deal with, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. You would have covered all the points. Acting CFO. Okay. Maybe just before I ask the DM to come in, as I will hand over to the chair to close, maybe National Commissioner, just one issue for me in the report, which I'm quite curious about, because it raises a very important point about the core mandate of the department. So the department has achieved 100% of its indicators in relation to rehabilitation. So 11 out of 11 done. With 98% expenditure and a variance of 26. Now, I want you to comment on this, and the DM can also do, because rehabilitation is a core mandate of this department. And of course, rehabilitation can only be successful if it is attended to with the other issues of social integration and so on. So having achieved this 100% of these 11 indicators with that 98% expenditure, because I was curious about this 26, I think it's 26 million variance, having achieved 100%. That's the first point perhaps that you can explain, but two, this 100% achievement on this core mandate of the department, is this an indication that you beginning to turn the corner, you have turned the corner, or because I'm looking at the impact of this achievement, or this is an achievement you obtained because you would have put 11 Cinderella targets that you have achieved? I'm inviting your comments and your team on that, just that one issue.
Chair, I'm not sure whether you, oh, okay. I was going to suggest that the National Commissioner comes in.
I'm waiting.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you, Deputy Minister. The issue raised by the Honorable Chairperson is at the heart of the exercise that we currently are engaging in, as the Minister did report earlier on, that we have a project with the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation in the President to assess and measure the impact of our rehabilitation programs. The report as it stands reflects on the targets that we have set for ourselves as the department. And what we actually do when we set our targets, we set them progressively, meaning that if, for instance, in a particular financial year, that the target is at a particular number, once we achieve that target, it is a demonstration that our capacity to improve is confirmed. So we actually up the target as we go. So the 100% performance is a reflection of the number of offenders that participate, the number of programs that we render, and our effectiveness in rendering those programs within budget, and also with the limitations that we have of the personnel that is at our disposal for us to be able to render those programs. Let me just give one example. If we look at educational programs, for instance, it will be a function of the number of classrooms we have. It will be the function of the number of teachers we have in particular correctional facilities. So as we improve on, adding the classrooms through our own in-house construction projects, as we employ, more teachers, we then increase the number, and that then becomes the performance that is reflected in the annual report. Yeah, Honorable Chairperson, that is the comment that I will make.
All right. Thank you, National Commissioner. Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. There isn't much that one can say. The response of the committee to the presentation speaks for itself. And we are very much appreciative of the comments that are encouraging us to do more than we are doing in order to ensure that we achieve the targets that we have set ourselves. I think one of the reasons could be that there's a growing understanding on the part of stakeholders, social partners, and communities about what correctional services are about. They are beginning to understand that it's not just a question of punishing them. It's not a question of retribution, but more a question of correcting the conduct of the people who have made mistakes, so that they are given an opportunity that they appreciate to rehabilitate themselves. And also, I think it's important, even though it's not the core mandate of this committee, the department, it's important that we talk about the socio-economic conditions that result in our people violating the law, getting them arrested by the police, prosecuted and charged and found guilty, and a number of them finding their way to our correctional centers. I think the socio-economic conditions should be addressed much more vigorously than we are doing at the moment, because people simply believe that if a person has wronged the family or the community, now they become the responsibility of the state. And yet there's so much more that we can do as families and as communities to reduce instances that are going to lead to people overcrowding our centers. And lastly, the self-sufficiency and sustainability framework that we have embarked on, particularly under the leadership of the new National Commissioner, is leading to a situation where we find that our inmates in our centers are ready to make a contribution to ensure that they, even as they undergo the rehabilitation programs, they also contribute to the sustenance of the community itself, that is the prison community, and thereby alleviating the burden on the state to have money being used in order to correct their conduct. So they are making their own contribution in ensuring that they get rehabilitated and eventually getting reintegrated into society. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable DM Dilizindaba. At this point, I think fortunately the chairperson has been able to reconnect with a different gadget. I'm going to invite him to take us to the close of the meeting. Honorable Chairperson.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I think I heard less than 5% of what was said. I think you're the best person to
All right, Chair.
conclusion.
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming back, even under those circumstances. I think let me, at this point, take the opportunity to thank Deputy Minister for leading the team and staying after the Minister would have left, and to thank the National Commissioner, who was not new to this. So there's a new signature on his name, but he would have been here. And some of the things that we're seeing here would have worked on them. So we hope that your taking over the reins is going to ensure that this department that we're watching is going to take to the next level, and that do not just be business as usual and just ticking the box. There are quite a number of challenges that are faced by this department. Correctly, it is a last receiver of the country's socio-economic challenges. So I want to thank you with your team, and I hope that you would have taken to heart the issues raised by the members. We are going to continuously interact with you beyond this on all of those thematic issues that we need to have time for beyond the annual report of today. There remains a lot of challenges that we're picking up here. We have a process as the committee that we're working on, and hopefully this time, in a year's time, we'll be able to say this is what we're doing around the issue of the alternative sentencing. We had planned to have a workshop, and I think Judge Cameron is watching us to deliver on that promise. So I want to thank you as DCS. Again, to thank you further, Inspecting Judge Cameron, for staying on after you had made the presentation. We'll continue interacting on all of these matters. Thank you to all of you, honorable members, and everybody who was here. Thank you, Chair. The meeting is adjourned. We will meet tomorrow for the next target of our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Sizodibana.
Recording stopped.
Off record.